Two other really important back drag exercises are push-ups and inverted rows. And the reason why those are really important is because they train push-ups, they'll train the front of our body on how to support our shoulder, pec, trap, scapula, all that kind of stuff, right? And then inverted rows just train the opposite of that, right? So both things are really important. We want to have a strong back and a strong chest because that is what is going to allow our shoulder and our humerus and arms to develop stability, okay? And if we don't have stability in those joints and muscles, then we're gonna get really floppy in our movements when we come around, which is gonna create back drag, okay? So it's really important to do those, okay? People usually think of like flexibility and they think of that as like a good thing, right? They'll be like, oh, well that athlete is really, really flexible and that's awesome, okay? And that's kind of like a stupid way to think of it, okay? Flexibility and stability happens on a spectrum, okay? And if we think of that spectrum, really, really flexible over here, okay? And really, really stable over here, as an athlete, we kind of want to be like in the middle. If we're way too flexible, right? We may be able to create length, but we won't be able to shorten that length in our swing or in our throw, okay? And that's a problem, okay? If we're way too stable, then we won't be able to create length and we're gonna throw like this or hit like this, okay? So some athletes are really, really hypermobile and some athletes are really, really hyperstable. And when it comes in different degrees of hyperstability and hypermobility can happen at different joints. So when you're talking about just like the shoulder, right? Some people might be really, really hyperstable like in their hips or, you know, in their glutes or whatever, right? But they might be really, really hypermobile in their shoulders, so they might get into these floppy positions. So we want to be, and we aim to be kind of in the middle of that spectrum at almost every one of our joints because we want to be able to create length, right? Because length is potential energy, right? But we also want to be able to shorten that length really, really quickly in a elastic way because that's going to be the kinetic energy of our swing or throw, our ability to run, all of those things. So when we think about like, oh, we need to work on flexibility, it's like, okay, like if we're really flexible already, we need to work on stability, okay, to try to get to the middle of that spectrum. And if we're really stable but not flexible, then yes, it makes sense to work on flexibility. So that's kind of how we should be thinking about it. And usually when people back drag, it's an expression of hypermobility, which is not a good thing and usually leads to injury.